Nate Diaz will be fighting Mike Perry this coming Saturday. I've spoken on this fight before, but I was watching the presser and it made me a little bit more excited about the fight. You know, when I spoke on this fight in the past, I was like, Perry's probably gonna win. I do want Perry to win. I love Nate Diaz. I really love Mike Perry. I feel like I'm kind of fake for that because I've been watching Nate Diaz fight since I'm a kid, and I've only been watching Mike Perry fight since I was 19, but I just like Perry a little more. I like Perry a little more. They both have that thing about them where they might not... They come off as stupid, but they're really not. They're smart in here, but they're not smart like in what comes out their mouth sometimes. They have a lot in common. Now, one might say that Nate Diaz, might lose this fight because he's, a little older, 41. It's a little old to be doing any kind of athletics unless it's like, I don't know, bowling or I don't know what else, golf maybe. But I think, and I've said this before, I think Diaz is better than you think at all times. He's a better fighter he's going to perform better than you think he will in these situations. Now, if he fights a whole ass, like full-on, full-scale, full-fledged wrestler, he'll lose. Most of the time he will not get finished, though. The only person he's really been outstruck on the feet by is Leon Edwards and Josh Thompson by a narrow margin. And I think that marijuana has anti-aging properties in it. I mean, look at Willie Nelson, look at Tommy Chong. You know what I'm saying? I think that also applies to Nate Diaz. Like, I just think that, because you have people that function better high. They function better high than they function sober. I think Nate Diaz is one of these guys. And I just feel like, since Nate's high all the time, he's just never nervous. He doesn't care about anything. And I think that's why potheads probably age pretty well. So I think that's also kept his body young. He's still, still limber, can still pop you. You know what I'm saying? And so I think he's gonna, if he loses, he's gonna do well. You know what I'm saying? I do think that, I do still think that Perry will still muscle Nate around in there because, it's not, a secret or anything, but Perry's strong as shit, and he might be better on the ground than he is on the feet. Not that he's, Vinny Magalhaes on the ground or Floyd Mayweather on the feet, but I think he's a little better on the ground. I see this fight, if Diaz wins, I see the fight playing out like Tim Means versus Mike Perry, where Mike Perry kind of muscled him around, the beginning of the fight, but once Means got up and was able to find his range, he kind of picked Perry apart a little bit. That could probably happen. Because Perry has obviously really found his niche with bare knuckle boxing. whether Perry would like to admit it or not, he's a good fighter, but he's a borderline mediocre mixed martial arts fighter. Like, he knows how to do all the martial arts, as far as, ground shit and just your standard striking. But I think he kind of struggled to put it all together. And, with bare knuckle boxing, you don't got to worry about shit. But the thing is, he struggles with doing straight up boxing. Bare knuckle is his shit because there's an element of savagery that goes into being a bare knuckle fighter. Mike Perry's kind of like this generation's Chris Lieben, even though a young Chris Lieben makes Mike Perry look like a Boy Scout. Just being tough is Mike Perry's thing, and he's got heavy hands, and and he can grapple. Nemo Fazil was giving Perry a hard time at the presser, basically saying, they offered you to fight me, but you didn't take it. You wanted the easy fight. You wanted to fight Nate Diaz. He's just trying to get his name out there, and I get it. He's doing the exact thing that Jeremy Stevens did at the presser for UFC 205. I respect it. I get it. And I actually think that when it comes to a mixed martial arts contest, that I think Fazil would probably beat Perry by a decision, of course. I don't think he'd finish Perry. So I don't know who's going to win between Nate Diaz and Mike Perry. It's been a while since Diaz took part in a mixed martial arts fight. Same for Diaz. It's just been a little bit longer for Perry. But and then, of course, this is really the main event. I don't think anybody cares about Carano versus Rousey. I don't. Ngannou's fighting. That's cool. Junior Dos Santos is fighting. That's cool. Jason Jackson. I like Jason Jackson. He's fighting. But hell yeah, fuck yeah. This is House Cat MMA. Make sure you do your subscribing, your liking, your commenting, your sharing. And always make sure to do your hell yes and your fuck yes.